Stanley's deep-seated love for animals had its roots in his teenage years, sparked by the rescue of a stray puppy at the tender age of 14. From then on, he dedicated himself to the cause of animal rescue, yet nothing could have prepared him for the extraordinary encounter awaiting him in 2011. This particular animal had lost all hope, resigned to its fate, and awaiting death's embrace. After completing his studies in zoology, Stanley made a life-altering decision to establish his own animal rescue organization. Leaving behind the urban landscape of his upbringing, he ventured to a quaint village, determined to make a difference. His journey began with the rescue of a stray cat, followed by 2 puppies, and soon his rescue was bustling with 10 animals, each with a unique story of hardship. Stanley's efforts didn't end with their rescue. He tirelessly worked to find them loving homes, ensuring their well-being even after they left his care. For a while, Stanley found solace in his work. His life seemed to flow smoothly, and his rescue efforts were without major complications. However, a journey to a remote forest, hundreds of kilometers from his home, would change everything. Camping in the forest held a special place in Stanley's heart, a tradition he shared with his father during his formative years. This trip, though, would prove to be unlike any other, setting in motion a series of events that would test his resolve and reshape his life's purpose. Since his father's passing, Stanley found solace in visiting the forest, reminiscing about the tranquil moments they once shared. However, this particular trip held an eerie atmosphere unlike any before. Having been away from the forest for 3 years due to work obligations, Stanley felt a sense of anticipation as he returned. Yet, as he ventured deeper into the dense woods, he noticed unsettling changes since his last visit. In the past, when he first moved to the village, Stanley frequented the forest every weekend. Now he observed clearings littered with empty cans, rags, and other signs of prolonged human habitation. A sense of foreboding lingered in the air, as though something ominous lurked among the shadows of the trees. Despite his growing unease, Stanley resolved to stay the night, determined not to be driven away by fear. Setting up camp, he pushed aside his apprehensions and focused on his preparations. As the evening descended and the sky darkened, Stanley lit a campfire and began roasting grass-cutter meat he had gathered at the forest's edge. Despite his efforts to distract himself, a restlessness settled over him, casting a shadow over what was supposed to be a peaceful night in the forest. The forest, once filled with the chirping of birds, had fallen silent, prompting Stanley to take a walk at its depths. Armed with his flashlight, he softly hummed a childhood tune as he strolled, feeling the cool breeze against his skin. Lost in his thoughts, Stanley wandered for what felt like an hour until a faint sound broke the silence, causing him to halt in his tracks. Perplexed by the unfamiliar noise, Stanley strained to identify its origin. It neither resembled the mighty roar of a lion nor the trumpeting of an elephant. It was something altogether different, leaving him mystified. Initially dismissing it as his imagination, Stanley's doubts were dispelled when the sound echoed louder, akin to a desperate cry for help. To his astonishment, that's exactly what it turned out to be. As Stanley contemplated his next move, distant voices reached his ears, growing louder and clearer with each passing moment. Soon, a group of men emerged from the forest, camouflaged by the grass as they carried circus equipment, aerial hoops, Chinese poles, clown bicycles, and more, passing by Stanley unnoticed. The sight quickened Stanley's pulse. As the men passed, they reminisced about the day's events, boasting of the circus animals' acrobatics and the reactions of the spectators, some terrified by the spectacle. They also discussed their earnings and made plans for the next day. Stanley, piecing together the situation, realized that the animal responsible for the earlier distressing sound was in danger and likely belonged to these men. Despite noticing the firearms in their possession, he was undeterred and determined to help the animal in distress. Following the men for about 40 minutes, Stanley arrived at a clearing with huts and clotheslines, indicating their living quarters. More armed men were present outside the huts. Stanley's curiosity had led him to an unexpected place. Near one of the huts, he noticed a parked truck emitting an unfamiliar sound. Approaching cautiously, he was alarmed to discover a frightened and helpless animal inside, illuminated by the dim glow of a flashlight. The sight before Stanley was both shocking and heart-wrenching. He watched as the mysterious creature attempted to escape its confines, only to be met with harsh shouts from one of the men, forcing it to retreat into a corner. The callous words exchanged among the men, discussing the animal's fate for their own entertainment, filled Stanley with sorrow and outrage. Tears welled in Stanley's eyes as he retreated to his campsite, grappling with the weight of the situation and pondering his next move. Determined to act, he waited until he was certain the men had departed before hurrying to their shelter, where two guards stood watch. In the light of day, Stanley got a clearer look at the animal, and to his astonishment, he realized it was one of his cherished creatures. Locking eyes with the weakened creature, Stanley sensed its silent plea for rescue. Emaciated and frail, the animal struggled to rise. Its refusal to touch the food provided a stark indication of its shattered spirit. With a heavy heart, Stanley witnessed the profound suffering endured by his beloved animal, its once vibrant essence now diminished by cruelty and neglect. Resolute in his resolve to intervene, Stanley vowed to free the creature from the clutches of its heartless captors, ready to embark on a mission to restore its dignity and ensure its liberation. Stanley swiftly abandoned his camping plans, recognizing the urgency of the situation. He contacted the authorities and an animal rescue center, emphasizing the critical need for a rescue mission to save the lion's life. Acting swiftly, the police intercepted the men upon their return to the shelter, arresting them and ensuring they faced justice for their cruel treatment of the lion. Approaching the lion, Stanley and the rescue team were astonished to discover the extent of the animal's suffering. Once a majestic creature, the lion had been reduced to a mere shadow of his former self. His fur had been shaved, and he bore the scars of neglect and mistreatment, including skin infections and declawed paws. Despite his hardships, the lion's eyes sparkled with newfound hope as he sensed the arrival of his rescuers. Stanley, moved by the lion's resilience, spoke to him with compassion and reassurance, promising him a life of freedom and dignity. "I know you have endured hell on earth. Now it's time to head home to paradise," Stanley said, offering the lion the promise of a brighter future. The rescue team swiftly arranged for the lion to be transported to a sanctuary, a vast refuge where he could roam freely across thousands of acres, finally experiencing the life he deserved. Stanley made a commitment to visit the lion regularly, fostering a deep bond between them. Through their friendship, the lion found solace and healing, and Stanley discovered the profound impact of compassion and kindness. There became a testament to the enduring power of empathy and the transformative effect of selfless acts of kindness.